A peasant woman saved a sick baby and his widowed father, not knowing he was a duke. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining us from, and subscribe if you love romantic stories like this. Now let's fall into this tale together. The marshlands had always been Sophia's refuge. Among the twisted reeds and murky pools, no one came to demand payment or question her solitude. She knew every safe path through the treacherous wetlands, every plant that could heal or harm. That evening, the sky hung low and heavy with an approaching storm. Sophia worked quickly in her cottage, bundling dried herbs into sachets, lavender for sleep, willow bark for pain, yarrow for fever. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, stained green from years of this work. Thunder rumbled in the distance. She needed to secure the barn doors before the rain came. Grabbing her shawl, she headed outside. The first drops were already falling when she heard it. A horse's desperate whinny, then a weaker sound. Human. Sophia froze. Travelers didn't come this way. The marsh paths were too dangerous for those who didn't know them. The horse cried out again, panicked. Against her better judgment, Sophia moved toward the barn. The door stood ajar. She pushed it wider and stepped into the darkness. Lightning flashed, illuminating the scene for one stark moment. A man slumped against the wall, soaked through, mud-stained coat torn at the shoulder, his dark hair plastered to his forehead. But it wasn't the man that made her breath catch, it was the bundle in his arms, a baby wrapped in sodden fabric, crying weakly. "Please!" the man gasped, lifting his head. His eyes were unfocused, desperate. "My son, he's burning up. I didn't know where else." He tried to stand and immediately collapsed back, breathing hard. Sophia's healer instincts overrode her caution. She dropped to her knees, reaching for the baby. The man's arms tightened reflexively. "I'm not going to hurt him," she said firmly. "But if you want him to live, you need to let me help. Now." Their eyes met. His were dark blue, like deep water, filled with a terror she recognized, the fear of losing someone you couldn't bear to lose. Slowly, he released his grip. Sophia pulled back the wet blanket. The baby's face was flushed, his tiny body radiating heat. His breathing came in rapid, shallow pants. 4 months old, maybe 5, and very, very sick. "How long has he had the fever?" she demanded. 2 days, the man said hoarsely. "Maybe 3, I lost track. We've been traveling and—" He broke off and swaying. "Are you injured? Doesn't matter. Just save him, please. He's all I have." Sophia made a decision. "Can you walk? The cottage is 30 yards. He nodded, jaw set with determination. His body clearly couldn't match. Using the wall for support, he pushed himself upright, made it 2 steps before his legs buckled. Sophia caught him with her free arm. No easy feat with the baby in the other. "Damn stubborn man. Put your arm over my shoulder. We're going to move slowly. If you fall and we all end up in the mud, understand?" He managed a weak nod. It took nearly 10 minutes to cover 30 yards. By the time they reached the cottage, they were all drenched, and the man was barely conscious. Sophia half dragged him inside and pointed to the bed in the corner. "Sit. Don't move." She didn't wait for acknowledgement. Moving with swift precision, she stoked the fire, then cleared her work table. The baby came first. She unwrapped him completely, checking for rashes, swelling, high fever, rapid breathing, slight blue tinge to the lips, lung fever, possibly pneumonia. She had hours at best to turn this around. Working quickly, she ground dried coltsfoot and mullein, added them to boiling water with honey. While that steeped, she crushed fresh garlic and made a poultice for the baby's chest. Then she prepared a cool compress for his forehead. "What's his name?" she asked, not looking up. "Thomas." The word was barely audible. "Thomas Gray." "Well, Thomas Gray," she murmured, carefully spooning tiny amounts of herbal tea into his mouth. "You picked quite a night to need help." She worked through the night. Every hour, more tea, fresh poultices, cool compresses, monitoring his breathing, his color, his temperature. Around 3 in the morning, the fever finally broke. Thomas's breathing eased. His color improved from deathly pale to merely exhausted pink. He fell into real sleep instead of the fevered half-consciousness he'd been trapped in. Sophia sagged against the table, suddenly aware of her own exhaustion. She turned to check on the father. He'd fallen asleep sitting up, head tilted back against the wall, arms wrapped around himself. Even unconscious, tension lined his face. Worry, fear, grief. She noticed things now that she hadn't in the chaos. His coat was quality material under the mud. His boots, though filthy, were well made. The signet ring on his hand, she caught a glimpse of gold before his fingers curled inward. Not a merchant, not a farmer, someone used to better circumstances, someone running from something. Sophia pulled a blanket over the sleeping baby, then settled into her chair by the fire, knife within reach, and let her eyes close. Just for a moment, Sophia woke to the smell of burning porridge. She jerked upright, momentarily disoriented. Pale morning light filtered through the shutters. The fire had been stoked, and someone was at her stove, making a terrible mess of breakfast. The man, she still didn't know his full name, stood with his back to her, awkwardly stirring a pot. He'd removed his ruined coat and wore only his shirt and waistcoat. "What are you doing?" she asked. He turned quickly, looking oddly guilty. "I attempted breakfast. I may have failed." She rose and crossed to the stove, peering into the pot. The porridge was indeed burned to the bottom, a black crust forming at the edges. "You've definitely failed," she confirmed. "Step aside before you burn down my cottage." He moved obediently, and she noticed the limp, not severe, but present. "You're hurt," she observed. "Twisted ankle, nothing serious." "Let me be the judge of that." She salvaged what she could of the porridge, about half, and divided it into 2 bowls. "Sit. I should check on Thomas first." "Already did. Still sleeping. Fever hasn't returned. He'll need careful monitoring for the next few days, but I think he'll recover." The relief that crossed his face was profound. He sank into the chair as if his strings had been cut. "Thank you," he said quietly. There aren't words enough." "Try starting with your real name," Sophia said bluntly, setting a bowl in front of him. "And why you're running." His jaw tightened. "I told you. Thomas Gray. That's the baby's name. What's yours?" A pause. "Alexander. Alexander Gray." Still lying, she thought, or at least not telling the whole truth. "And you're running because—" "Debt," he said after a moment. "Bad investments. Men who don't take kindly to delayed payment." Possibly true, probably not the whole story. "Those men, are they likely to come here looking?" His eyes met hers with genuine concern. "I don't know. I tried to cover our tracks. But I can't promise they won't eventually." "Wonderful." She ate a spoonful of the salvaged porridge. "So I've sheltered a man running from dangerous creditors, saved his dying child, and now I'm potentially a target. Do I have that right? I'm sorry, if I'd had any other choice." "But you didn't, because men with choices don't end up half dead in barns with sick babies." They ate in silence for a moment. "How long has he been ill?" Sophia asked finally. "Oh, it started 4 days ago. Just a small cough. By the 2nd day, the fever came. I tried to find help in the last village, but the physician had left. Someone said there was a healer near the marshes who knew medicinal plants. I thought if I could just reach—" "You barely made it." "I know." Thomas stirred in the corner, making small sounds. Alexander was on his feet immediately, limp, forgotten, moving to the bed. Sophia watched him lift the baby with practiced care, murmuring soft reassurances. The tenderness was unmistakable. Whatever else this man might be lying about, his love for his child was genuine. "Where's his mother?" she asked. Alexander's hands stilled. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "Gone. She died when he was born, 4 months ago." "I'm sorry." "So am I. Every day." The baby's eyes opened, cloudy blue, like his father's. He looked around with the vague confusion of someone emerging from illness, then focused on Alexander's face and relaxed. "Hungry, little man?" Alexander asked softly. "I have goat's milk," Sophia offered. "Easier for him to digest while he's recovering. I'll warm some." As she prepared the milk, she studied them covertly. The way Alexander held Thomas, supporting his head with unconscious expertise. The way he checked the baby's temperature with the back of his hand, watched his breathing. Not a man accustomed to having nurses do such things. Either he'd learned by necessity, or he'd insisted on learning despite having help. The latter, she suspected. "You'll need to stay at least a few days," she said, handing him the warmed milk in a small cup with a cloth teat. "Thomas isn't strong enough to travel yet, and your ankle needs rest." "I don't want to impose." "Too late. You already have." She paused. "Besides, I need to monitor him. Lung fever can return if you're not careful." "Then I'm grateful." He coaxed Thomas to drink, patient when the baby fussed. "I'll help however I can. I may not be skilled at cooking, but I can chop wood, repair things." She raised an eyebrow. "Can you? How hard can it be? Harder than you think, I suspect. The next 2 days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Alexander proved spectacularly incompetent at most practical tasks. He split wood like someone who'd watched it done, but never actually wielded an axe. And his attempts to mend a broken shelf resulted in it being more broken, but he tried earnestly, and somehow that mattered. Thomas improved steadily. His color returned, his breathing eased, and he began to show signs of personality. A ready smile when Alexander sang to him off-key, curious eyes following Sophia around the room, small sounds of contentment when held. Sophia found herself softening despite her caution. She'd catch herself smiling at Alexander's fumbling attempts to help, or feel warmth in her chest when Thomas reached for her with his small hands, or notice the way the cottage felt less empty with their presence. It was dangerous, she knew, getting attached to people who would leave. On the morning of the 3rd day, Roger Fletcher appeared. Sophia was outside gathering kindling when she heard his voice calling from the path. "Mistress Marsh, are you about?" She cursed under her breath. Fletcher was the local farmer who supplied her with milk and eggs in exchange for remedies for his wife's headaches. He was also the biggest gossip in 3 parishes. "In the clearing, Mr. Fletcher," she called back, moving to intercept him before he reached the cottage. He emerged from the trees, red-faced and puffing. "Ah, there you are. Haven't seen you in the village lately. Everything well?" "Quite well. Just busy with work." "Busy, eh?" His eyes darted past her toward the cottage. "Only I noticed, seems like there's been more smoke from your chimney than usual. And Martha thought she heard a baby crying when she came by yesterday to leave eggs." Sophia's stomach tightened. "You must have been mistaken." "Was I? Now?" He craned his neck, trying to see past her. "Because Martha swore—" "Your wife has an active imagination," Sophia interrupted. "I've been burning more wood because I'm preparing tinctures. The process takes hours. As for crying, probably foxes. They make odd sounds this time of year." Fletcher looked unconvinced. "Foxes, right. Was there something you needed, Mr. Fletcher? I have work to do." "Just checking in on our local healer," he said, but his eyes were still searching. "Making sure you're safe out here all alone." "I'm perfectly safe. Thank you for your concern." She stood her ground until he reluctantly turned to leave, throwing several backward glances. When she returned to the cottage, Alexander was standing by the window, Thomas in his arms, staying carefully out of sight. "Friend of yours?" he asked quietly. "Local farmer, and the fastest tongue in the county." She latched the door. "He's suspicious." "I'm sorry, we should leave. Thomas isn't ready, and your ankle is still weak." She paced, thinking, "We'll be more careful. No more daytime fires that create obvious smoke. You stay away from windows." That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. She lay in her bedroll near the fire. She'd given Alexander and Thomas the bed, staring at the ceiling beams. A sound made her turn her head. Alexander sat on the edge of the bed, silhouetted by moonlight. Thomas slept peacefully beside him. "Can't sleep either?" he asked softly. "Too much to think about." "I'm sorry for bringing trouble to your door." She sat up. "You keep apologizing. It's getting tedious." A quiet laugh. "Force of habit, I suppose." "Who are you really, Alexander Gray?" The question hung between them. "Does it matter?" he asked finally. "Yes." He was silent for a long moment. "What if the truth puts you in more danger?" "The truth usually does. Tell me anyway." He stood, moving to the window, careful to stay in shadow. When he spoke, his voice was low. "My name is Alexander Gray. That much is true. was someone of means, position. My brother." He stopped, jaw clenching. "My brother wants me dead." Sophia's breath caught. "Your own brother. He needs me and Thomas gone. If we die, he inherits everything. Title, lands, fortune. And Edmund is desperate. Gambling debts. Dangerous people he owes. He hired men to create an accident." "What kind of title?" Alexander turned to face her. Even in the dim light, she could see the weight in his expression. "Duke," he said quietly. "I'm the Duke of Greystone." The words seemed to suck the air from the room. Sophia stood slowly. "You're a duke?" "Yes. And you didn't think to mention this before. Would you have helped if you'd known, or would you have been too afraid of the consequences of harboring nobility?" She wanted to be angry. She should be angry, but he had a point. "Your brother hired assassins," she said slowly. "That's who you're running from. Not creditors, murderers." "Yes, and if they find you here, they'll kill anyone who helped me," he finished. "I know. That's why I couldn't tell you." If you'd had the option to refuse, at least you could claim ignorance. Now, he shook his head. Now I've made you complicit. Sophia sank back down, head spinning. A duke. She'd been sharing her cottage with a duke, tending to his child, burning his breakfast porridge. This is insane, she whispered. I know. If they come here, I'll leave. Tonight, if you want. I'll take Thomas and disappear. You can tell anyone who asks that you never saw me. She looked at the baby sleeping peacefully on the bed, 4 months old, motherless. Father a fugitive from his own brother. Thomas isn't strong enough yet, she heard herself say. Another few days at least. Sophia, I'm not doing this for you. She cut him off. I'm doing it because that child needs time to heal. Don't mistake compassion for stupidity, Your Grace. The title came out sharp, almost mocking. He flinched. I never asked for that title. I never wanted... He stopped, taking a breath. I'm sorry. You're right to be angry. I'm not angry. She was surprised to realize it was true. I'm just trying to understand why a duke ends up half dead in my barn instead of surrounded by guards and physicians. Because I don't know who to trust, he said simply. Edmund has influence, money, connections. If I'd stayed at Greystone Manor, I would have been a sitting target. So I ran, foolishly perhaps, but I ran to protect your son. Yes, she understood that at least. Protection made people do reckless things. The ring, she said suddenly. I saw it. Gold signet ring, you've been hiding it. He pulled it from his pocket, held it up to the moonlight. The grey family crest caught the silver glow. Proof of who I am, he said. Also proof, for anyone looking to collect Edmund's bounty. You should have thrown it away. I couldn't. It was my father's, his father's before him. 8 generations of grey dukes. He closed his fist around it. Foolish sentimentality. No, Sophia said quietly. Human. Their eyes met across the small room. What happens if your brother succeeds? She asked. If you and Thomas die? Edmund becomes the 9th Duke of Greystone, controls vast estates, influences Parliament, lives in comfort while people on his land struggle because he doesn't care about anything beyond his next card game. And if you survive? I try to be better than my predecessors. I try to make changes that actually help people instead of just sounding noble in speeches. He smiled bitterly. I had plans, reforms, ideas about education and fair wages. Doesn't matter now. It might, Sophia said. If we can keep you alive long enough. She met his gaze steadily. I'm already implicated. Might as well see it through. Sophia, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to. There's a difference. Something shifted in his expression. Gratitude, yes, but also something deeper. Respect. Thank you, he said softly. Thank me, when we're not dead. 2 days later, everything changed. Martha Fletcher arrived with eggs and urgent news. Strange men in the village, she said breathlessly, setting the basket on Sophia's table. 3 of them, rough-looking, asking questions about travelers, specifically about a man with a baby. Sophia's blood went cold. What kind of questions? Description, where he might have gone. They're offering money for information. Good money. Martha's eyes were worried. Roger heard them. Sophia, I think he's going to tell them about the smoke, about hearing the baby. When? Tonight. They're staying at the inn. He's going there after supper. Sophia's mind raced. How long do we have? Hours. Maybe less if Roger decides to go early. Martha gripped her hand. I don't know what's happening here, and maybe I don't want to know, but be careful. Those men looked dangerous. After Martha left, Sophia didn't waste time. She found Alexander already preparing to leave. Thomas bundled in his arms. I heard, he said tersely. We'll go now. Go where? The marsh paths are treacherous in darkness. You don't know them. You'll both die. Better than leading killers to your door. There's another option. She pulled a cloak from her trunk. I know a place. A cave system in the deep marsh. I use it sometimes for gathering certain plants. It's dry, hidden, and only I know how to reach it safely. You want to hide us in a cave? Unless you have a better suggestion. He didn't. Within an hour, they'd packed essential supplies, food, water, herbs, blankets. Sophia extinguished the fire, scattered the ashes, removed any evidence of occupancy. Then they set out into the gathering dusk. The path to the caves wound through the most dangerous part of the marshes. Solid ground was scarce, marked by subtle signs only someone with years of experience could read. Step exactly where I step, Sophia instructed. No variations. Understand? Yes. Thomas, perhaps sensing tension, remained blessedly quiet against Alexander's chest. They moved in single file through the darkness. Mist rose from the marsh, thick and disorienting. Twice Alexander's foot started to slip toward unsafe ground, and twice Sophia caught him. "Trust me," she murmured. "I won't let you fall." And somehow, in that moment, it meant more than just the marsh. After nearly an hour, they reached a rocky outcropping that rose from the wetlands. Sophia led them to what looked like a narrow crack in the stone, barely wide enough for a person. "In there?" Alexander asked doubtfully. "It opens up inside. Come on." She went first, then guided him through. The passage was tight for perhaps 6 feet, then suddenly opened into a chamber the size of a small room, dry, almost warm. Above, a natural chimney hole provided ventilation. "How did you find this?" Alexander asked, looking around. "My father showed me. He was an herbalist too, said these caves were used by smugglers once and generations ago." She began unpacking supplies. "We can risk a small fire. The smoke will dissipate through that opening." While she built the fire, Alexander settled with Thomas on the blankets. The baby stirred, fussing slightly. "He's hungry," Alexander said. She'd brought the goat's milk in a sealed container. Now she warmed it carefully over the small fire. As Alexander fed his son in the flickering firelight, Sophia found herself watching them. The play of light and shadow on Alexander's face, the gentle way he held Thomas, the soft sounds he made to keep the baby calm. This was a man who'd grown up with every privilege, yet he'd fled into the night with nothing but his child and desperate hope. "What are you thinking?" he asked without looking up. "Ask that you're very different from what I imagined a duke would be." Disappointed. Confused. He smiled slightly. "My father believed that title didn't exempt one from being human. He made me learn everything. How to manage lands, yes, but also how things actually worked. I spent summers working alongside tenants, learning to repair fences, tend animals, understand what their lives were actually like. Your brother didn't do the same." Edmund refused. Said it was beneath him. Alexander's jaw tightened. He wanted the title, the privilege, the power, but not the responsibility. Thomas finished eating and made a small, satisfied sound. Alexander shifted him to his shoulder, patting his back gently. "You're good with him," Sophia observed. "I have to be. He's all that's left of—" He trailed off. "Your wife? Catherine? She was good, kind. We didn't marry for love, it was arranged, but we grew to care for each other. When she became pregnant, we were both happy. And then—" He paused. "The midwife said there was too much bleeding. Nothing they could do. Catherine held him for perhaps 5 minutes, just long enough to name him Thomas. Then she was gone." Sophia heard the guilt beneath the words. "It wasn't your fault, wasn't it? Perhaps if I'd insisted on a physician from London—" "You can't change what happened," Sophia interrupted. "You can only take care of who's left." He looked at her, tears he refused to shed shining in his eyes. "When did you become so wise?" "When I stopped blaming myself for things I couldn't control." "Your husband?" She stiffened. "What about him? You said you were widowed, and there's something in the way you said it. Smart man, observant." "My James died 3 years ago," she said carefully. "In a tavern brawl, drunk as usual, picked a fight with the wrong man. I'm sorry. Don't be—" "I'm not." Silence. Then, quietly, "He hurt you." It wasn't a question. Sophia stared into the fire. "He wasn't always cruel. At first he was charming, attentive. I was 18 and foolish enough to believe it would last. By the time I realized what he really was, I was already his wife. And wives are property." "Sophia, he never broke bones," she continued flatly. "He was too careful for that. Bruises where they wouldn't show. Words that cut deeper than fists. 3 years of walking on eggshells, trying not to provoke him, failing anyway because the fault was never actually mine. And when he died, I felt guilty for being relieved. Everyone expected me to mourn. I pretended. But mostly I felt like I could finally breathe." She looked at him directly. "So yes, I'm widowed. But no, I'm not grieving." Alexander shifted Thomas to lie against his chest, freeing one hand to reach toward her. "May I?" She understood what he was asking. Permission to touch, to offer comfort. She nodded. His hand found hers, warm and solid. No grabbing, no assuming, just offering presence. "I'm sorry you endured that," he said. "No one should." "No, they shouldn't. But many do, women especially. We're told marriage is safety, security. Sometimes it's just a prettier prison. Not all marriages. No, she admitted. Not all. But enough that I swore I'd never marry again. Never give another man that kind of power over me. A reasonable vow. Is it? She looked at their joined hands. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just being a coward. You're not a coward. You're careful. There's a difference. She met his eyes in the firelight. Something passed between them, understanding, recognition. Two people who'd been hurt by loss in different ways, finding unexpected kinship. We should sleep, she said, gently, withdrawing her hand. One of us needs to keep watch. I'll take first watch. You're still recovering. Sophia. His voice was gentle but firm. You've been taking care of us for days. Let me do this one thing. Please, she wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. Wake me in 3 hours, she conceded. She lay down on the blankets, using her cloak as cover. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Alexander sitting in the firelight, Thomas sleeping peacefully against his shoulder, standing guard over them both. Safe, she thought hazily. For now, at least, they were safe. Sophia woke to darkness and the smell of extinguished fire. For a disorienting moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back, the cave, the danger. Alexander keeping watch. She sat up quickly. Alexander! Here! His voice came from near the entrance. Something's wrong. She moved to join him. He stood at the narrow opening, listening intently. Thomas slept in a makeshift cradle they'd fashioned from blankets. What is it? She whispered. Voices. Distant, but getting closer. And light. Torches, I think. Sophia's stomach dropped. She squeezed past him to look out. Through the mist, she could see flickering orange light moving slowly across the marsh. Not one torch. 3, maybe 4. They're searching, she breathed. Fletcher must have told them. Can they reach us here? Not if they don't know the safe paths. But she studied the pattern of movement. They're being systematic. Eventually they'll get close enough to see the outcropping. Then we need to leave. And go where? If we try to cross in darkness without the safe route. She didn't finish. They both knew what happened to people who wandered into deep marsh at night. Alexander was quiet for a moment. What if I draw them away? I go out there, let them see me. Lead them in the wrong direction while you and Thomas... Absolutely not, Sophia. They're looking for me, not you. You'll die in the marsh within 20 minutes, she cut him off. You don't know the paths. Even if you did, you think you can outrun professional killers with a bad ankle. I have to try something. I won't let them find you because of me. She grabbed his arm. This is my land, my expertise. We stay hidden and wait. Wait for what? For them to make a mistake. As if summoned by her words, one of the torchbearers ventured too far from safe ground. His confident stride suddenly became a panicked stumble as the earth beneath him turned from solid to liquid. His shout echoed across the marsh. The other torches converged on him, 3 men pulling their companion from the sucking mud. Sophia watched with grim satisfaction. See, the marsh defends itself. They'll be more cautious now. But they're not leaving. No, she admitted. They're not. They retreated deeper into the cave. Alexander checked on Thomas, still sleeping, thank God, while Sophia thought furiously. The hours that followed were tense. They took turns keeping watch, speaking in whispers when they spoke at all. The searchers remained visible through the cave entrance, moving methodically through the area. As dawn approached, Sophia finally saw what she'd been hoping for, the searchers retreating, exhausted and frustrated by the treacherous terrain. They're leaving, she whispered. Alexander joined her at the entrance. Together they watched the torches move away, back towards solid ground. For now, he said quietly. But they'll be back. Then we can't stay here much longer. He nodded. I know. But where do we go? Before she could answer, Thomas woke with a small cry. Alexander moved immediately to comfort him, but the baby's cries grew louder, hungry, uncomfortable, reaching the edge of real distress. Shh, little man, Alexander murmured, bouncing him gently. Not so loud. But Thomas, secure in the way only babies can be, cried louder. Sophia quickly prepared milk, but the damage was done. In the pre-dawn quiet, the baby's cries would carry far. They both froze when they heard it, voices closer now, moving back toward their position. Did you hear that? Sounded like a baby. This way. Alexander looked at Sophia, panic in his eyes. Run! Take Thomas and run. We run together or not at all, she hissed. But there was no time. The footsteps were too close, the voices too near. Then, cutting through the tension, another sound, hoofbeats, and a familiar voice. "Gentlemen!" "A word, if you please." Dr. Whitmore. Sophia nearly sobbed with relief. Through the narrow opening she could see the elderly physician sitting atop his carriage, blocking the path the searchers had been taking. "Dr. Whitmore," one of the men said, confused. "What are you doing out here?" "I could ask you the same thing, searching the marshes at dawn. Dangerous business. I've treated 3 men this year who tried to cross these wetlands without proper knowledge. 2 of them lost toes to the cold water. The third, well, we found him eventually. We're looking for someone. A fugitive." "Ah. Well, if he's foolish enough to be in these marshes, he's likely already dead. The terrain is unforgiving." Whitmore's tone was casual, conversational. "Might I suggest you gentlemen return to the village? I'm heading there myself. I could offer information about the local geography, help you search more safely." There was muttered conversation among the men. "Very well, Doctor. Lead the way." The voices faded. The hoofbeats moved away. Sophia and Alexander remained frozen for long minutes, hardly daring to breathe. Finally, when silence had returned completely, they looked at each other. "Dr. Whitmore," Alexander said. "How did he—" "I don't know, but thank God he did." They waited another hour to be certain the searchers were truly gone. Then carefully, Sophia led them out of the cave and through the marsh paths to where they'd hidden Alexander's horse days before. Dr. Whitmore waited there, sitting on a fallen log as if he had all the time in the world. "Your Grace," he said, rising. "Miss Marsh, I'm relieved to see you safe." "Dr. Whitmore," Alexander said, "how did you find us?" "Martha Fletcher came to me last night, told me everything, the strangers, her husband's betrayal, your likely location. I knew if those men searched the marshes, they'd need guidance away from certain areas." He smiled. "I simply provided that guidance." "You saved our lives," Sophia said. "I returned a favor. Your father once saved my wife when consumption threatened her. I owed the Marsh family a debt." He turned to Alexander. "But we're not safe yet. I have news from London. Edmund has been arrested. Lord Harrington, the Home Secretary's advisor, received my letters about your disappearance. He launched an investigation into your brother's finances and activities." Alexander's breath caught. "And the evidence is damning. Edmund owes massive gambling debts. The investigators found letters, correspondence between Edmund and the men he hired to eliminate you. Then it's over." "Not quite. Edmund fled when he learned of the investigation. He was apprehended at Dover trying to board a ship to France. He's now in custody awaiting trial." Whitmore's expression grew serious. "But there's a complication. During your absence, Edmund spread claims that you'd gone mad with grief, that you'd kidnapped Thomas, that you were dangerous and unstable. That's absurd." "I agree, but perception matters. To counter his narrative, you need to appear publicly. Show London society that you're perfectly sound. Harrington suggests you return to the city immediately." Alexander looked at Sophia, a question in his eyes. This was it. The moment when their strange, isolated existence would end. When he would return to being the Duke of Greystone, and she would have to decide what role she'd play in his life, if any. "I'll come," she said before he could ask. "To London, to wherever. I'm in this now." Relief flooded his face. "You're certain?" "No, but I'm choosing to anyway." Whitmore nodded approvingly. "Then we should leave immediately. I have my carriage hidden nearby. It's a 3-day journey to London, but we'll travel quietly, avoiding main roads where possible." As they gathered their few belongings, Alexander caught Sophia's hand. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything, for saving Thomas, for protecting us, for choosing to stay even when you had every reason to run." "Thank you for giving me a reason to be brave," she replied. He squeezed her hand once, then released it. But something had shifted between them in that cave, in those whispered conversations in the dark. Something neither of them could name yet, but both of them felt. As they climbed into Dr. Whitmore's carriage and began the long journey toward London and whatever awaited them there, Sophia touched the pocket where she'd tucked a small sprig of marsh lavender, a piece of home to carry forward. She was leaving behind the only life she'd ever known, but perhaps, just perhaps, she was also moving towards something better. The journey to London took 3 days. Dr. Whitmore's carriage was comfortable enough, but the closer they got to the city, the more Sophia's anxiety grew. She watched the countryside give way to towns, then suburbs, then finally the sprawling chaos of London itself. She'd never seen anything like it. Buildings stacked upon buildings, stretching farther than she could see. Streets packed with carriages, carts, horses, and more people than she'd known existed in the world. The noise was overwhelming. Vendors shouting, wheels clattering, church bells ringing, 1,000 conversations happening at once. Overwhelming? Alexander asked, watching her take it all in. That's an understatement. You'll adjust. London has a rhythm. You just need to find it. Easy for you to say. You grew up with this, and you grew up knowing which plants could kill or cure. We all have our expertise. He squeezed her hand. You won't be alone. I'll be with you. She wanted to believe that would be enough. Lord Harrington's London residence was in Mayfair, a townhouse that spoke of old money and political power. A butler admitted them immediately, showing them to a private study where Harrington himself waited. He was younger than Sophia expected, perhaps 50, with sharp eyes and an air of competence. "Your Grace," he said, rising to greet Alexander. "I'm relieved to see you safe, thanks to Dr. Whitmore and to Miss Marsh." Alexander drew Sophia forward. "Without her, Thomas and I would not have survived." Harrington's gaze settled on her, assessing. "Miss Marsh, the herbalist, Dr. Whitmore mentioned in his letters." "Yes, my lord. You took considerable risk sheltering his grace." "I took in a man with a sick child. I didn't know who he was at first. And when you learned," she met his eyes steadily, "I chose to continue helping. Children shouldn't suffer for adult politics." A faint smile crossed Harrington's face. "Indeed." He gestured to chairs. "Please, sit. We have much to discuss." Once they were settled, Sophia perching uncomfortably on an expensive chair, Harrington began, "Lord Edmund has been apprehended and is currently in custody. The trial will begin in approximately 3 weeks. The evidence against him is substantial. Letters, financial records, testimony from 2 of the men he hired. His conviction is virtually certain." "What will happen to him?" Alexander asked quietly. "Transportation to Australia, most likely. Given his rank, execution is less probable, though it remains a possibility." Alexander was silent, processing his brother's fate. "There's another matter," Harrington continued. "During your absence, Edmund made significant public claims about your mental state. He suggested to several influential people that grief had unbalanced you, that you were unfit to manage the duchy or care for your son." "That's absurd," Sophia said hotly. "I agree, Miss Marsh. However, perception matters in these circles. His Grace needs to demonstrate publicly that he is sound, capable, and in control. I recommend a series of appearances, Parliament, social events, meetings with key allies. Show society that you're the same competent duke you've always been." "When?" Alexander asked. "Immediately. Tomorrow, there's a session of the House of Lords. You should attend. After that, accept invitations. Be visible. I've been hiding in marshes and caves for 2 weeks. I'm not exactly prepared for society. Your London residence has been maintained in your absence. Your staff awaits, your wardrobe, everything you need." Harrington paused. "I've also taken the liberty of preparing rooms for Miss Marsh. Given the circumstances, it would be prudent to have her nearby, both for Thomas's continued care and to demonstrate your gratitude publicly." It was carefully worded, but Sophia understood. She would be Alexander's guest, his son's nurse, respectable, explainable, but still essentially hidden. "Actually," Alexander said carefully, "I'd like Miss Marsh to reside at Greystone House, in the guest wing, not the servants' quarters. She saved my son's life. She's not a servant." Harrington's expression suggested he thought this was a mistake. "Your Grace, that's highly irregular. I don't care. She'll be treated as an honored guest in my home, or I'll find other accommodation for all of us." The steel in Alexander's voice made it clear this wasn't negotiable. "As you wish," Harrington said finally, "but I caution you, society will talk." "Let them," Alexander replied. Greystone House in London was nothing like the cottage, or even Harrington's impressive townhouse. It was a 4-story Georgian mansion that radiated wealth and status from every stone. A line of servants waited in the entrance hall. The butler, Mr. Pemberton, elderly and dignified, bowed deeply. "Your Grace, the entire household rejoices at your safe return." "Thank you, Pemberton. This is Miss Sophia Marsh. She'll be staying with us as Thomas's caretaker and as my personal guest. Please see that she's given every comfort and courtesy." Pemberton's face betrayed nothing. "Of course, Your Grace. The Rose Room has been prepared in the guest wing." A younger maid stepped forward, pretty, perhaps 20, with bright, curious eyes. "I'm Annie, miss. I'll be helping you during your stay." "I don't need help," Sophia began. "Everyone here has someone to help them, miss," Annie said cheerfully. "It's just how things work. Don't worry, I'm not nearly as intimidating as Mrs. Halloway." She nodded toward an older woman with a severe expression. "She's the housekeeper." Mrs. Halloway curtsied with precision. "Miss Marsh, welcome to Greystone House." The greeting was polite, but Sophia caught the assessment in the woman's eyes. This peasant girl who'd somehow attached herself to the Duke, what was her game? Sophia was shown to her room, the Rose Room, named for its pink wallpaper and floral decor. It was beautiful. It was also completely overwhelming. The bed was enormous. There was a dressing table with a proper mirror, a wardrobe that could hold more clothes than Sophia had owned in her entire life, a writing desk, and a door leading to a private bathing room with an actual tub. "It's too much," she whispered. Alexander had followed her up. "It's a bedroom. You need somewhere to sleep. You know what I mean. This world, these people, I don't belong here." He stepped into the room, closing the door for privacy. "You belong wherever you choose to be, and I'm hoping you choose to be here, at least for now, as Thomas's nurse." "As yourself," he corrected. "The nurse role is just a socially acceptable explanation for your presence while we figure out how this works." "And how does it work? You go to Parliament and fancy parties while I hide in the guest wing. For now, perhaps, until my reputation is restored and Edmund is convicted. Then," he stopped, frustrated. "Sophia, I'm trying to protect you. If I parade you around before my standing is secure, the scandal could destroy you, so I'm your secret. No, you're my priority. And right now my priority is keeping you safe from society's viciousness while I rebuild my position. Once that's done, once Edmund is dealt with and I'm firmly re-established, then we can be open about—" He trailed off. "About what?" she asked quietly. He met her eyes. "About the fact that I don't want to imagine my future without you in it." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Before Sophia could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. Annie entered with a package. "Begging your pardon, Your Grace, miss, but Lady Caroline Ashworth has sent this for Miss Marsh, along with a note saying she'll call tomorrow afternoon." Alexander took the package. "Caroline, my cousin, she's formidable, but fair." After he left, Sophia opened the package. Inside was a day dress in soft green, simple by aristocratic standards, but finer than anything she'd ever owned. The note was brief. "Miss Marsh, I've heard extraordinary things about you. I look forward to meeting the woman who saved my cousin and his son. Welcome to London. It's going to be quite interesting." Lady Caroline Ashworth. Sophia wasn't sure if that was a promise or a threat. The first week was an adjustment. Annie proved invaluable, chatty and kind, willing to explain the bewildering rules of aristocratic life without making Sophia feel stupid. "It's all nonsense, really," Annie said as she helped Sophia dress one morning. "All these rules about which fork to use and when you can speak. My mum says it's just how rich people feel special by making everything complicated. Your mother sounds wise. She's a cook 3 streets over. Says all families are mad in their own ways, but at least the quality pay regular wages." Annie stepped back. "There, you look lovely, miss." Sophia looked at herself in the mirror. The green dress fit well, and with her hair properly styled, she looked almost like she belonged. Almost. Thomas provided familiar comfort. Caring for him gave her purpose when everything else felt uncertain. He was growing so fast, more alert and interactive every day. When she sang to him, he'd watch her face with intense concentration. When she played peekaboo, he'd laugh, that gorgeous baby laugh that made everything worthwhile. Alexander spent his days navigating politics, attending Parliament, meeting with allies, slowly rebuilding his public presence. In the evenings, as promised, they dined together in his private study. "How was it today?" she'd ask. "Tedious. Productive. I'm making progress." Then he'd ask about her day, genuinely interested in the small details, what Thomas had done, what Annie had told her about other households, how she was adjusting. These dinners became her favorite part of each day, the one time they could be simply themselves without worrying about servants or society or what anything meant. But she could feel the strain. Alexander was exhausted, carrying the weight of restoring his reputation while managing duchy business and preparing for Edmund's trial. And she was isolated, trapped in beautiful rooms with nothing to do but wait. On the 10th day, everything changed. Sophia was in the nursery with Thomas when Annie appeared, looking flustered. "Miss Marsh, you have a visitor. Lady Caroline Ashworth is in the drawing room and has requested to see you specifically." Sophia's stomach dropped. "Did she say why?" "No, miss, but she seemed quite determined." Heart pounding, Sophia made her way to the drawing room. She'd never been in this part of the house. The formal entertaining spaces had felt off limits, but a footman opened the door and she stepped inside. Lady Caroline stood by the window, examining a porcelain figurine. She was perhaps 35, elegant in a way Sophia would never be, dressed in the height of fashion. "Miss Marsh," she said, turning. Her gaze was sharp, assessing. "How good of you to see me." "Lady Caroline, I'm surprised by your visit." "I imagine you are." Caroline set down the figurine. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect? Some ambitious schemer using a baby to manipulate my cousin." "Instead, I find a frightened girl wearing borrowed dresses and hiding in guest rooms." Sophia's spine stiffened. "I'm not hiding." "Aren't you? Alexander hasn't introduced you to anyone. You don't attend any events. You exist in this house like a ghost." Caroline tilted her head. "Why?" "Because he's protecting me from exactly this kind of scrutiny." "How noble. Also, how foolish." Caroline sat gracefully on the sofa, gesturing for Sophia to join her. "Sit. I'm not here to attack you." Warily, Sophia sat. "I'm going to be blunt," Caroline said. "The entire town knows something is happening. Alexander disappeared with his infant son, emerged weeks later with a mystery woman, and is now keeping her sequestered in his house. The rumors range from scandalous to absurd." "What kind of rumors?" "That you're his mistress, that you're blackmailing him, that you're some sort of witch who's enchanted him." At Sophia's expression, Caroline nodded. "Yes, really, because clearly the only way a duke would be interested in a common woman is through magic." "That's absurd." "Of course it is, but it's what people will believe unless they see otherwise, unless you prove yourself." Caroline leaned forward. "Which is why you're coming with me to the Hartley ball tomorrow night." "What? No, absolutely not." "Yes, you'll be my guest. I'll introduce you as the herbalist who's been caring for Thomas. Nothing scandalous, just a skilled woman in a professional capacity. Lady Caroline, people will meet you, see that you're intelligent and well-spoken, and when Alexander eventually declares his intentions, as we both know he will, there will be familiarity. You won't be a complete unknown." It made terrible sense. "I don't know how to behave at a ball," Sophia admitted. "I don't know the dances or the etiquette. Annie will teach you the basics. I'll stay by your side all evening, and if anyone is rude, I will destroy them so thoroughly their grandchildren will feel the shame." Caroline's eyes glinted. "I'm very good at social destruction. Why are you helping me?" "Because Alexander is family, and he's happier than I've seen him in years. Because my own marriage was a love match, and I know how rare that is." She paused. "And because I'm tired of society's nonsense. If you're brave enough to enter our world, I'm going to make sure you have a fighting chance." Sophia thought of Alexander, exhausting himself trying to protect her. She thought of the hidden life she was living, neither here nor there. "All right," she said, "I'll come to your ball." Caroline's smile was triumphant. "Excellent. Wear something blue. It suits you. And Sophia, prepare for battle. Society can be vicious, but I promise, you're stronger than you know." That evening, when Alexander returned from Parliament, Sophia was waiting in his study. "We need to talk," she said. He set down his papers, concerned. "What's wrong?" "Lady Caroline visited today." His expression darkened. "Caroline? What did she say? If she was unkind, she was unexpectedly kind." "She also invited me to the Hartley ball tomorrow night." "Absolutely not." "I accepted." Alexander stood abruptly. "Sophia, no. It's too soon. The rumors are getting worse by the day, apparently. People think I'm your mistress or a witch who's enchanted you." She stood to face him. "You said you wanted partnership, equals. But Alexander, you can't have that while treating me like something fragile that needs protecting from reality. I'm trying to spare you. I don't want to be spared. I want to be beside you. Yes, it's terrifying. Yes, I'll probably say the wrong thing, but I'm going to have to face your world eventually. I'd rather do it now with Caroline's support than wait until the scrutiny is even more intense." He stared at her, jaw working. "You're serious?" "Completely. They'll be cruel, Sophia. These people can be viciously cutting without saying a single overtly rude word. Then I'll learn to be cutting back. You said I was sharp-tongued. Let's see if it works on aristocrats." Despite himself, he almost smiled. Then it faded. I can't lose you. You won't. But you can't keep me like this either. I need to exist in your world as myself, or this won't work. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he crossed to her, taking her hands. You're braver than I am, he said quietly. No, just more impatient with waiting. If you do this, I want to be there. I'm attending the Hartley ball as well. I'll be watching. And if anyone treats you with disrespect, they'll answer to me. I don't need you to fight my battles. No, but I need to be there anyway. For me, not for you. She squeezed his hands. All right, we'll face it together. From a distance, but together. The next 24 hours were chaos. Annie transformed into a determined teacher, drilling Sophia on basic etiquette, how to curtsy properly, how to hold a fan, how to navigate a ballroom without tripping over her own dress. Remember, Annie coached, chin up, shoulders back, and smile like you know a secret they'd kill to learn. Ladies or assassins? Sometimes the same thing, miss. Caroline arrived mid-afternoon with reinforcements. A dress she'd had altered specifically for Sophia, deep sapphire blue silk that made Sophia's eyes look enormous, proper jewelry to borrow, long gloves that reached past her elbows. Perfect, Caroline declared after Sophia was dressed. You look like you belong. Now remember, chin up, let them come to you. Answer honestly but briefly. If anyone is outright rude, say, how interesting, and walk away. I'll handle the rest. Why are you doing all this? Sophia asked. Because you make Alexander happy, because you saved Thomas, and because watching you scandalize society is going to be the most entertainment I've had in years. Caroline's smile softened. But truly, you deserve a chance. Not everyone gets to marry for love. If you two are brave enough to try, I'm going to help. As the carriage rolled toward the Hartley mansion that evening, Sophia touched the hidden pocket where she'd tucked Alexander's signet ring. He'd given it to her that morning. Keep this, and he'd said, as a reminder that you're not alone in this, and as a promise, when tonight is over, when you've proven to yourself how strong you are, I'm going to ask you a question. And I'm hoping you'll say yes. Now, watching the glittering mansion approach, Sophia took a deep breath. Ready? Caroline asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's the spirit. The Hartley mansion blazed with light. Every window glowed golden, and music spilled into the street. Carriages lined the drive, disgorging elegantly dressed people. Sophia's hands trembled in her lap. Breathe, Caroline instructed. You look magnificent. Their carriage stopped. A footman opened the door. Caroline descended first, then turned to help Sophia. The entrance hall was overwhelming. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, flowers everywhere, and people. So many people in silks and jewels that probably cost more than Sophia would earn in a lifetime. Conversations paused as they entered, eyes turned, assessing. Lady Caroline, their hostess, Lady Hartley, ice-cold and elegant, greeted them. How delightful. And your guest, Miss Sophia Marsh, Caroline said smoothly, an herbalist of considerable talent. She's been caring for the Duke of Greystone's son during his recent difficulties. Ah, yes, we'd heard. Lady Hartley's smile didn't reach her eyes. How charitable of you, Miss Marsh. It wasn't charity, Sophia said, keeping her voice steady. It was my profession. Of course, how industrious. The dismissal was clear. Shall I do enjoy the evening? As they moved into the ballroom, Caroline leaned close. Well done. She was testing you. You didn't flinch. I wanted to, but you didn't. That's what matters. The ballroom itself was like something from a dream. Hundreds of candles in massive chandeliers, an orchestra at one end, couples whirling across a floor so polished Sophia could see reflections, and everywhere, people staring. They're not subtle, Sophia murmured. Subtlety is for people with nothing better to do. Caroline guided her to the side. We'll stand here. Let them come to us. Ah, there's Alexander. Sophia's heart jumped. She found him across the room, distinguished in formal black evening wear, surrounded by men in serious conversation, but his eyes were scanning the crowd. When he found her, everything else seemed to fade. His expression shifted. Relief, concern, something deeper. He nodded once. A silent acknowledgement. I'm here, you're not alone. He looks like he wants to abandon that conversation and come over, Caroline observed, which would be romantic and socially disastrous. Ah, here comes our first test. A woman approached, younger than Caroline, beautiful in a cold way. Her dress was elaborate pink silk, her jewels excessive. Caroline, darling, she purred. "Oh, you must introduce me to your mysterious companion. Lady Beatrice, may I present Miss Sophia Marsh? Sophia, Lady Beatrice Wentworth." "Miss Marsh." Beatrice's eyes travelled over Sophia with undisguised disdain. "The herbalist. How fascinating. Tell me, do you actually sell your potions at markets? How quaint." "I provide medicine to people who need it," Sophia said evenly. "Thus where they obtain it seems less important than whether it saves their lives." "Oh, she's spirited," Beatrice said to Caroline, as if Sophia weren't there. "Does she do tricks? Perhaps mix us a love potion?" "I could mix you something," Sophia said sweetly. "Though in your case I'd recommend a treatment for disposition rather than love. Chamomile helps with bitterness." Caroline choked on a laugh. Beatrice's smile froze. "How delightfully common," Beatrice said, venom coating the words. "Caroline, I do hope you know what you're doing, bringing such colorful individuals into society." "I know exactly what I'm doing," Caroline replied coolly. "Unlike some who mistake cruelty for cleverness." Beatrice swept away, posture rigid with offense. "That was perfect," Caroline said once she was gone. "You stood your ground without losing composure. Beatrice is a viper, but she's also a coward. She won't come at you directly again." "Are they all like her?" "Some are worse, some are better. You'll learn to tell the difference." Over the next hour, Sophia met dozens of people. Some were genuinely kind. An elderly botanist named Lord Hampton who wanted to discuss marsh plants, a Lady Ashford who thanked her for caring for Thomas, several younger women who seemed intrigued rather than judgmental. Others were openly disdainful or coldly polite in ways that felt worse than outright rudeness. But Sophia held her ground. She answered questions honestly. She didn't apologize for who she was. And slowly, she began to feel less like an imposter and more like someone who simply belonged in a different way. Then Beatrice made her second attempt. Sophia was explaining something about willow bark to Lord Hampton when Beatrice approached with two equally unpleasant-looking friends. "Miss Marsh," she said, loud enough for nearby conversations to pause, "I've been wondering, do you actually believe your little herbs work? Or is it all just superstition dressed up as medicine?" The room quieted. This was a direct challenge, made publicly. Sophia met Beatrice's eyes steadily. "I believe in what I can observe and verify. I've seen marsh willow reduce fever. I've seen comfrey accelerate wound healing. I've seen lavender calm troubled sleep. If that's superstition, it's remarkably consistent superstition. But you have no formal training, no medical degree. You're self-taught." "Yes, as was my father and his mother before him. Sometimes knowledge is passed through doing rather than institutions." Sophia paused. "Though I notice you're wearing perfume, lavender and bergamot if I'm not mistaken. Both herbs, both used for centuries. Are you practicing superstition, Lady Beatrice, or simply taking advantage of what works?" A ripple of laughter ran through the listeners. Beatrice's face flushed. "How dare, ladies!" A new voice interrupted. "What a delightful discussion!" Everyone turned. Alexander stood there, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Your Grace," Beatrice said, recovering slightly, "we were just discussing Miss Marsh's profession." "Were you? How generous of you to take such interest." His tone was pleasant. His eyes were ice. "Miss Marsh's knowledge saved my son when he was dying of lung fever. No physician could help, but her herbs did. So when you question her abilities, Lady Beatrice, you're questioning whether my son deserved to live." The silence was absolute. "That's not what I meant," Beatrice stammered. "Wasn't it? Then perhaps you should choose your words more carefully." He looked around at the watching crowd. "Miss Marsh is under my protection. Anyone who shows her disrespect shows disrespect to me. I trust I make myself clear." Murmurs of agreement. Beatrice and her friends retreated, thoroughly defeated. Alexander turned to Sophia. "Miss Marsh, I believe the next dance is a waltz. Would you do me the honor?" Every eye in the room fixed on them. Sophia's heart hammered. She barely knew how to waltz, but she also understood what Alexander was doing, claiming her publicly, showing society that she mattered to him. "I would be honored, Your Grace," she said. He offered his arm. She took it, feeling the solid strength of him. As they walked to the dance floor, Caroline caught her eye and smiled approvingly. The orchestra began. Alexander's hand settled at her waist, his other hand clasping hers. "You didn't have to do that," Sophia murmured as they began to move. "Yes, I did. I won't stand by while people mock you. I was handling it." "I know. You were magnificent," But I needed them to understand that you're not alone, that you have my support publicly. They turned, his lead confident, and Sophia found herself following more easily than she'd expected. Everyone's staring, she said. Let them see that I choose you, that I'm proud to be here with you. Alexander, your reputation is mine to manage, and I've decided that I don't care about scandal if it means hiding what you mean to me. Her breath caught. Shai, what do I mean to you? Everything, he said simply. They danced in silence for a moment, the music swelling around them. When this dance ends, Alexander said quietly, I want to take you somewhere we can talk, alone, because there's something I need to ask you and I can't wait any longer. Alexander, I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but Sophia, in that time, you've become essential to me. You've shown me what partnership looks like, what love looks like, and I don't want to spend another day pretending that's not true. The music ended. The final notes hung in the air. Alexander didn't release her hand. Instead, he led her from the ballroom through a side door into a quiet library. He closed the door behind them, then turned to face her. Sophia, he began. Wait, she held up a hand. Before you say anything, I need to say something first. He went still, waiting. She took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I swore I'd never marry again, that I'd never give another man power over me, that I'd rather be lonely than trapped. I know, but you've made me question that, not by pressuring me, but by showing me that partnership can be real, that not all men are like James, that trust is possible. Her voice shook. I'm still scared. Scared of losing myself, scared of being hurt, scared that I'm not enough for your world, Sophia. But I'm more scared of letting fear win, of walking away from you because it's safer, and spending the rest of my life wondering what if. She met his eyes. So before you ask whatever you're going to ask, I want you to know my answer is yes. For a moment, he just stared. Then he crossed to her in 3 strides. Yes, he breathed. Shall you don't even know what I'm asking? I know you, that's enough. He pulled the signet ring from his pocket, the one she'd returned to him that morning. I wasn't going to give you this ring. It's too heavy with history, too tied to obligation and duty. Instead, I was going to get you something new, something that represented just us, Alexander. But then I realized this ring is 8 generations of grey dukes, men who made mistakes, who struggled, who tried. And you've made me want to be better than all of them, to use this title not as a shield, but as a tool to actually help people, to build something worth passing on to Thomas. He took her hand. So I'm giving you this ring not as a burden, but as a promise that if you marry me, you're not just getting a duke, you're getting a partner who will spend every day trying to deserve you. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. You already deserve me, and I deserve you. We've both been through hell to get here. Then you'll marry me, officially, in front of everyone. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. It was too large, made for a man's hand, but somehow that felt right. They'd make it work. They'd make all of it work. Then he kissed her, deep and sure, and Sophia felt the last of her walls crumble. This was trust. This was choosing hope over fear. This was terrifying and wonderful and right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. We should go back, he said reluctantly. Tell Caroline. Make it official. What will people say? Everything. But Sophia, I don't care. Let them talk. Let them judge. You're worth every word of scandal. She laughed through her tears. You're ridiculous. I'm in love. There's a difference. They returned to the ballroom hand in hand. The music had started again, couples swirling across the floor, but when Alexander and Sophia entered, conversations stuttered to a halt. Caroline saw them first. Her eyes went to their joined hands, to Sophia's tear-stained face, to Alexander's expression of fierce joy. She smiled slowly. Well, I suppose congratulations are in order. We're engaged, Alexander said simply, his voice carrying across the sudden quiet. The ballroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, a few genuine exclamations of delight, and more than a few sounds of shock. Lady Hartley looked faint. Lady Beatrice looked murderous. But Caroline laughed with genuine pleasure and pulled Sophia into an embrace. Welcome to the family, she said. It's going to be quite a scandal. I'm delighted. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Edmund's trial was swift and brutal. The evidence was overwhelming. Letters detailing the assassination plot, Financial records showing payments to hired killers, testimony from the men he'd hired. Edmund himself remained defiant, claiming he'd been protecting the duchy from Alexander's instability. The jury deliberated for less than an hour, guilty on all counts. The sentence, transportation to Australia for life. As Edmund was led from the courtroom, he caught Alexander's eye. "This should have been mine," he said, voice raw with hatred. "I would have been better." Alexander watched his brother, the boy he'd played with, fought with, loved despite everything, being taken away. When Sophia took his hand, he gripped it tightly. "Will you visit him before he's transported?" she asked quietly. "I don't know. Maybe someday, when it doesn't hurt so much. You don't owe him forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever." He nodded, grateful for her understanding. Wedding preparations began immediately. Caroline took charge with military efficiency. 6 weeks, she announced. That gives enough time for planning without dragging it out so long that society invents new scandals. 6 weeks is so soon, Sophia protested. It's forever in society time. Trust me. Any longer, and we'll have to deal with speculation about whether you're pregnant. I'm not. I know. But they don't. 6 weeks. Greystone Manor. 200 guests. 200. Intimate by aristocratic standards. Many will be people who need to see this happen, so they'll stop questioning it. Consider it political theatre with flowers. Despite the chaos, there were moments of genuine joy. Thomas, now 7 months old, had begun babbling constantly. One afternoon, as Sophia played with him, he clearly said, "Mama." Sophia's heart stopped. Did he just? He's been doing that for days, Alexander said, grinning. I was waiting for you to hear it. Mama, Thomas repeated, reaching for her. Sophia burst into tears, happy, overwhelmed tears. Our son, she whispered. Our son, Alexander confirmed, wrapping his arms around them both. Sophia also began establishing herself in London society. With Caroline's guidance, she attended more events, growing comfortable with aristocratic small talk. She started seeing patients 3 afternoons a week in the East Wing of Greystone House, which Alexander had converted into a proper workspace. Word spread quickly. Sophia treated headaches with feverfew, joint pain with willow bark, anxiety with valerian. She charged only what people could afford. You're making the physicians angry, Dr. Whitmore observed one afternoon, visiting to see her setup. You charge a fraction of their fees and get better results. Good. Medicine should be accessible, spoken like a true reformer. You and Alexander are going to turn society upside down. That's the plan. The wedding day dawned clear and bright. Greystone Manor had been transformed. Wildflowers mixed with formal roses. Marshes meeting the manor, as Sophia had requested. The small chapel on the grounds was packed with 200 guests, split evenly between aristocrats and common people whose lives Sophia had touched. Sophia dressed in ivory silk, simpler than most aristocratic wedding gowns, but elegant. Embroidered at the hem were small herbs, lavender, rosemary, sage, a nod to who she was. You look beautiful, Caroline said, adjusting Sophia's veil. I look terrified. Also beautiful. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Martha Fletcher arrived, looking overwhelmed. Oh, lass, you look like a queen. I'm just Sophia. You're about to be a duchess. But you'll always be our Sophia, too. As Sophia entered the chapel on Dr. Whitmore's arm, he'd offered to give her away, the crowd rose. Whispers ran through the assembly. But Sophia saw only Alexander, standing at the altar with Thomas in his arms, both of them watching her with identical expressions of joy. He'd insisted on holding Thomas during the ceremony. He's part of this. Our family. As Sophia reached the altar, Thomas reached for her, making his demanding "Mama" sound. Laughter rippled through the chapel. Sophia took Thomas, settling him on her hip. The three of them stood before the priest, duke, herbalist, and baby. The vows were traditional, but when it came time for rings, Sophia had a surprise. She pulled out her mother's worn gold band. This was my mother's, she said softly. She wore it for 20 years in a marriage built on love. I'd like you to wear it now, as a reminder that this marriage is built the same way. Alexander's eyes shimmered. He slid the ring onto his finger where it fit perfectly. I'll honor it, and them and you every day. When the priest pronounced them married and Alexander kissed her, Thomas, still in Sophia's arms, grabbed both their faces and squealed with delight. The chapel erupted in laughter and applause. "Farewell," Alexander said, grinning. "That's one way to seal it." "Our son has excellent timing," Sophia agreed. "Our son," he repeated. "I like how that sounds." The dispensary at Greystone Manor had become famous throughout London. Sophia held open hours 3 mornings a week where anyone, regardless of status key, could come for treatment. The waiting room mixed duchesses with seamstresses, lords with labourers, a small revolution happening in the east wing of a duke's house. She'd also begun teaching. 4 women from the village were learning herbal medicine under her guidance, and Lord Hampton's botanical treatise, co-authored with Sophia, had been published to significant acclaim. "Your Grace," her student Margaret said one morning, "this patient's symptoms, I think yarrow deficiency. Should I prepare a tonic?" "What makes you think yarrow?" Sophia asked, teaching through questions as her father had taught her. "The excessive bleeding, the bruising. Yarrow strengthens blood vessels." "Excellent. Yes, prepare the tonic." Thomas ran into the dispensary, 13 months old now, walking everywhere with determined wobbliness. "Mama, Mama, Papa says come." "What's happening, sweetheart?" "Important. Come now." She found Alexander in the library, looking ridiculously pleased with himself. "What's so important?" she asked. He handed her a letter. "From Parliament. The Education Reform Bill passed. The one proposing free schools in rural areas. It includes provisions for teaching practical skills, including herbal medicine." Sophia's breath caught. "Your bill. The one you've been fighting for. Our bill. You helped write half of it." He crossed to her. This is what partnership looks like, Sophia. You save lives directly. I push for systems that let more people learn to save lives. Together, we're actually making a difference." She threw her arms around him. "I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of us." Thomas tugged at Sophia's skirt. "Mama." "Story." She lifted him up. "What story do you want?" "How you and Papa met." Sophia and Alexander exchanged glances. "Well," Sophia began, settling into a chair with Thomas in her lap, Alexander leaning against the desk. "It was a dark and stormy night, like in adventure stories." Thomas's eyes went wide. "Exactly like that. And I heard a noise in my barn. So I went to investigate. Was it scary? Very scary. But do you know what I found?" "What?" "A man who needed help, and a baby, a very sick baby, who needed even more help." "Me," Thomas announced proudly. "You," Sophia confirmed, kissing his head. "You were so small and so sick, but I gave you medicine made from special plants, and you got better. And then you married Papa. Well, there were some adventures in between. We had to hide from bad men. We lived in a cave for a while. A cave, like dragons. No dragons, just us. And slowly, your Papa and I became friends. Then we became more than friends. And now we're a family. Best family?" Thomas declared with the absolute certainty of a toddler. "The very best," Alexander agreed, moving to sit beside them. "Though I think your mama is leaving out the part where she was incredibly brave." "Was she brave like knights?" "Braver. She was brave enough to trust again when she'd been hurt. Brave enough to enter a world that was strange to her. Brave enough to choose love over safety." Sophia leaned into him. "You were brave too. You ran into a storm to save your son. You trusted a stranger. You chose partnership over tradition." "We're both brave," Alexander said. "That's why we work." Thomas yawned hugely. "I'm brave too. I jumped off the steps today." "That's not bravery, that's recklessness," Sophia said, though she was smiling. "Come on, brave boy. Time for your nap." As she carried Thomas up to the nursery, Alexander followed. They settled him in his bed and he was asleep within minutes. One hand curled around his favorite wooden horse. Standing in the doorway watching him sleep, Sophia felt a profound sense of contentment. "Do you ever regret it?" Alexander asked quietly. "Giving up your quiet life?" Sophia thought about her cottage in the marsh, small and safe and lonely. She thought about the life she had now, complicated, public, occasionally overwhelming. But she also thought about Thomas calling her Mama, about the women she was teaching, about the patients she helped, about the man beside her who saw her as an equal partner. "No," she said, "some days are hard, some days I miss the simplicity, but I wouldn't trade this, wouldn't trade us." He pulled her close. "Neither would I. You know what I love most about you? My extensive herbal knowledge. That's top 5. But what I love most is that you remained yourself. You didn't let this world change you. You changed it instead. We changed it together," she corrected. "Partners." Remember, partners, he agreed, in all things. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their son sleep, the weight of the day settling around them. Outside, London continued its chaotic existence, but here, in this quiet moment, they had everything that mattered. A peasant woman and a duke, an herbalist and a duchess, Sophia and Alexander, together, exactly as they were meant to be. Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to our channel, leaving a like, sharing it with friends and writing a comment below. Your support means everything to us and keeps us inspired to tell more stories filled with love, resilience, redemption, and second chances. At the end of this video, you'll find another unforgettable romance from our collection. Click and discover where the next story will take you. With all our appreciation, the Empire of Hearts Stories team.